Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Now, in today's podcast, I wanted to discuss the layoffs at Deloitte. This came out a little while ago, but Deloitte will cut 1,200 jobs in the U.S., which is really not that much. It's 1.5% of their workforce. This is according to the Financial Times. And the areas where that'll be affected is most likely the financial advisory business. And obviously, this is the consulting side of Deloitte, which makes sense. And I couldn't find an official announcement from Deloitte. Maybe somebody else has it, but I couldn't find one. It's just a whole bunch of websites that are referring to internal communications at Deloitte, which leads me to believe that this is probably not the last of the layoffs at Deloitte. There's no way if the Deloitte is primarily a consulting firm and is only laying off 1.5% of their workforce while everybody else is laying off a lot more. So that's my thoughts on that. And I think there's more to come on that front. And there's somebody that watches the YouTube that left a comment, a loyal listener, and they talked about how Deloitte laid off a bunch of people, even people that were 100% utilized and booked throughout this next year. And these people also had good ratings, good performance, and that Deloitte doesn't have performance plans, PIPs, like the other big four accounting firms do. They all call it something different. I think PwC and KPMG might call it the same thing. And EY might as well. I don't know if they call it a PIP though. But that's the other thing with these. Now that I'm talking about the PIP and as it relates to the big four, a lot of these layoff numbers include people that are in PIPs, and that's what I'm hearing out of EY too. That a lot of the layoffs that EY are announcing are just the normal people they fire every year, or that are gonna fire within a year after they go on the performance plan. But this individual that was commenting, saying that these people at Deloitte don't really get PIPs; they just get put on a plan to be laid off, and that Deloitte has a whole lot more requirements than the other big four accounting firms, including like 100 to 300 hours spent on firm initiatives, and that getting work at Deloitte is a lot harder than the other big four. You don't necessarily have dedicated time management people that get you work. Or at the other big four, you typically do have a person that is constantly trying to find you work. And this didn't used to be the way it was either. You used to have somebody get you work in the beginning when you started, and you kind of just had to float around and keep your utilization up. And then retain and other booking software has been utilized where you have to plan out your whole year. And as a result of that, there's time management people that, help people find the work that they need to find to stay utilized. But apparently that might not be the case in Deloitte. And so you have to, use networking to find your work. But as a big four professional that's trying to perform well, that's the way you should have been working the whole time. You should be managing your career, and it's hard to do. I will say that, because it's easier to treat the big four job as an industry job and just do what you're told, but you're going to get stuck. If you want to progress to manager, senior manager, partner, you need to make sure that you're selective of the clients that you want to be on, because you have to look at the clients as your potential book of business. Like, can you take over this client? Do you want to take over this client? Do you want to have this client as your client, potentially as a partner? And the answer to that will be no if the client is terrible, if they don't pay their bills on time, if the revenue isn't that much but the work is a lot, if the partner is too young. Because if you have a young partner or a partner that doesn't have any inkling of retiring, then you're going to have to wait a lot longer to become partner. You need to line up your clients to be clients that you like and that need a partner soon. So you need to be selective in multiple areas, and this it requires a lot of planning, and it's long term planning as well. And it's hard to do when you're early on in the Big Four to long term plan like this. But when you've been in the Big Four long enough, you see how planning can really help out your career, because you're drinking from a fire hose of the Big Four accounting firms, because the second you come in, you're overloaded with work. If you're lucky, because you should be overloaded, otherwise you're going to run the risk of being laid off. And it used to be uncommon to be laid off. And I think in audit and tax, it's still uncommon, and it will always be kind of uncommon depending on where you're at. But it's uncommon to be laid off. But in the past, we've seen, with COVID-19, now with this whatever time we're in, where some of the economy's in a recession and the other is not. Obviously, there's portions of the economy that are in recessions. Like the deals markets are in a recession, and I think everything else is slowly catching up. But over what time frame things recover is not well known. It depends on liquidity, interest rates, things like that. So it might be a while, and the potential for layoffs of the Big Four accounting firms on an ongoing basis, I think they're getting more used to it. And it's just a confusing time at the Big Four accounting firms. But as this person said, Deloitte operates a little bit differently. And so, and being that this came from a source that I don't think that 1,200 number is a good number, especially because Deloitte is so consulting heavy. And I think that there's probably more layoffs at Deloitte. There will be more layoffs. And the way you can do this is look at layoff trackers. We have a layoff tracker that I'll link in the show notes. But there's a lot of other layoff trackers as well. And Deloitte is in those layoff trackers as well. But what I was trying to say is if you keep an eye on these layoff trackers, you'll see that firms keep laying people off. And one of the most recent, I think, is Goldman Sachs. I think they're on their third round. And the reason that Goldman Sachs is laying people off is because of deals are not happening at the level they'd expect, and there's some trading revenue that's gone down. So if firms like Deloitte or Goldman Sachs and other investment firms are laying off people, which is basically a professional services firm, then you can pretty well expect that Deloitte to have some more layoffs, and the other Big Four accounting firms. And PwC as well, because the scandal that's happening to PwC. So there's more to come on this. We have a tracker on our website for accounting firms. I'll probably throw in some other companies in there too, just so that people can have it side by side. But just wanted to keep people up to date on the layoffs. That one's from a while ago, I know, but just wanted to incorporate that because it's important to get a full picture. And then E&Y too. I think E&Y did the bulk of theirs. Like they slammed a bunch of people, so it's like 5% or something like that. So a lot of people got laid off at E&Y. So it'll probably be, if E&Y is going to lay more people off, which I'm not saying they are, then it would probably be like 6 months from now is what I think. And it would probably still be focused in consulting. Um, the other thing with E&Y is they audit a lot of tech companies, and tech companies are doing really well right now. So that could sustain a lot of audit people. So I think the focus at E&Y would be on consulting again. But that's the update on layoffs. And make sure to check out the show notes where you can get the link to the layoff tracker. And thank you for listening.